Second last level of leadership, service. To me, this is the best symbol for service. Does anyone know what this is right here?
A dumb child.
Maybe. This is most of your futures. Hopefully not anytime soon. Hopefully not anytime soon. No, calm down. Chill. Anyway, I had one of my former players yesterday call me, and he was kind of distraught. She's like, Steve, you know you always talk about service and serving others, leading with love. Does it ever get to a point where you're an empty vessel?
Yeah.
Where you just can't give anymore? And he has a young child I got the pleasure to meet a few months ago. And I said, well, would you ever say that to your kid? I said, think about the little kids that we have. Remember these little juice things and these little milks?
Oh, yeah.
And when you put it in, what happens to the bottle? It goes totally empty. Empty vessel, kind of like he's feeling right now in his leadership roles. So I said, what happens when you turn it back right side up? It refills up. And that's what a servant's heart does. It's nice if people are doing nice things for you or saying thank you or showing appreciation and refilling your bucket, so to speak. But most people won't. And you have a servant's heart, that teeter-totter leader where you lower yourself to the bottom and elevate others to the top of the teeter-totter in love. That's service. And see, I learned about a servant's heart from a guy named Pat Williams. Have you ever heard that name before, Pat Williams? Probably no one in this room has heard that name, Pat Williams. But it's one of the most important names in my life. Pat Williams is top 5, starting 5 basketball terminology person in my entire life ever. And I never even met him until a couple years ago. Sometimes you guys think, oh, I'm just one person. I can't make a difference. To kind of really impact change. A guy who I don't even know personally is one of the most important people in my life because he changed and elevated and transformed who I am as a person. When you transform one, you transform everyone. But that person transforms, elevates. The reason I say baby is the symbol of service. You all probably don't remember this, but you were all little babies once, and your parents had to bathe you, clothe you, feed you, clean up your poo and your vomit. Disgusting. Up all night because you're whining and crying. Little Red's like, where's the cats? You know what I mean? Like, just driving his mom crazy. But what they do, they're on empty, and the next morning they wake up, and what they do for you again, they refill their bottles literally and figuratively and serve you with love some more. How are they able to do that? And why? You provided them nothing. You just take. You can't even talk it. You can't even say thank you, Mom or Dad. How are they able to keep refilling this up?
Because they love you.
Let's say it again.
Because they love you.
Because they love you. We talked about yesterday, the greatest treasure, gave you all skeleton keys. You got to unlock the love. Love is how you refill your bottles. The more love you give, the more you can give to love. And then love just refills you. Unlike a bank account, when you take things out as empties, a love account, the more you take out, the more it compounds and gets better. And I learned this idea of leading with love, of service, from a guy named Pat Williams. Orange County, Florida, and I live in Orange County, California. And we didn't meet for 14 years. I was a 19-year-old kid coaching the JV basketball team at this school, Fountain Valley High School. This autistic, shy, introverted, kind of sad, depressed, after my parents' divorce and 9/11 and things going around in our country. Wondering, is there more to life than the superficial nonsense I'm seeing in my first year of college? I didn't really have my parents giving me much guidance. And I picked up a book because I wanted my JV basketball team to be bigger than basketball. It was a book about leadership. I didn't know what leadership was. I was the shy, quiet kid, the speech impediment. No one ever told me I could lead. I never thought I could lead. And then I read a book about leadership. They don't teach leadership in schools. I didn't know what leadership really was. And then I got to the very last page of this book, written by a guy named Pat Williams. And on the very last page, something I'd never seen in any book prior, or any of the books I've read since. And it said, I would love to hear your feedback on this book. Here's my phone number, call me. I thought, really? Pat Williams. You might not have heard his name, but you've heard of Shaquille O'Neal?
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you heard of Shaquille O'Neal. Pat Williams was the vice president and the co-founder of the NBA Orlando Magic. He brought Shaquille O'Neal to Orlando. He brought the Magic to Orlando. He traded Chris Webber, University of Michigan star, for some named Penny Hardaway, and built that dynasty with Penny and Shaq. Back in the day when he was the GM of the 76ers, he was criticized to spend all this money on a guy named Dr. J. You ever heard of Dr. J? Brought in the Sixers and won an NBA NBA championship, world championship. If you ever watched ESPN's 30 for 30, hold on, brother. On Orlando Magic, it's so well done. Pat Williams is the guy with the mustache, the iconic photo of kissing the #1 ping pong ball as he got back-to-back #1 drafts for Orlando. But that's not why I love Pat Williams. So, here he is, this guy, leading an NBA franchise, author of multiple books, dozens of books, has 19 children of his own. 19 of these little puppies. That takes a lot of love. 14 of which were adopted from countries around the world. And this father of 19, leading an NBA franchise, took the time to call a 19-year-old Steve Schultz back. And it changed my life forever. I feel like the Stand-Lot. Forever, like the flashlight. I called him up a message, hey, Pat, this is Steve Schultz. I'm a 19-year-old JV basketball coach, Fat Lake High School, freshman in college, just trying to. I loved your book, and I asked him some questions about leadership. A day or two later, I get a call. Hey, Steve, Pat Williams here, Orlando Magic. Thanks for the call. He's always so positive. Was on the road, the team got back. Saw your message. Thanks so much. Here's my email if you ever have any more questions. And answer my questions. I was stunned. He took the time to invest in me, to serve me, to give me a bottle, so to speak, of love. And you know what I did the very next day? I went and bought some more Pat Williams books. Smart of him, I guess, from a business standpoint. Read another one, loved it. Read another one, loved it. Emailed him. Emailed me back. I would email him again, email me back. And I started reading these books, and he was talking about the importance of service, of storytelling, of love, of morals, of character, of ethics, what it really means to be a leader. Messages that we're not getting a whole lot of places in Orange County, California. And I was eating it up. I talk about the importance of reading and writing, and my hat today says just write it. And through his books and his reading and his leading and his service, he would change my life, and then thus change life. How many of you, how old were you guys in 2007? You're just being born. And so was I in a way. I was being reborn thanks to Pat Williams. Because one day I got this letter in the mail from Pat Williams. This is Pat Williams and I. This is Pat. This is me at Orlando Magic Games. I'll tell you about how that happened in a second. September 6, 2007, Orlando Magic to Steve Schultz. From Pat Williams. As you were being born, without realizing that this letter would bring me to you 15 years later. I would not be standing in front of you today if it wasn't for this letter by Pat Williams. Here's, after we had talked a few times, see, I wanted to be like Pat, and I studied storytelling, and I studied writing, and so this one summer, all night long, I started just writing every night. Not for an assignment, not for school. I wanted to create this little book for my JV basketball players about morals and ethics and leadership, the stuff Pat was teaching me through his books. And people thought I was crazy. Like, what is it? Everyone else, all the rest of my friends I knew were getting wasted every night, and I was staying home getting elevated every night, reading and writing, searching for truth and wisdom and guidance. up to 4 a.m. every night writing some book. What is Steve's not a writer? What's he doing? And I sent it off to Pat. And he called me back, we talked about it, and then I got that letter in the mail. 2007, September 6th. He says, Steve, I'm working on a new book with some of the great basketball minds of all time. It's stories about basketball, but really bigger than basketball, about life. For Chicken Soup for the Soul. Something I kind of have heard of. He goes, I think you're a really talented writer. Submit some stories to me. I can't guarantee they'll get in the book, but I think you have a good message. And I was stunned. And so was Trika. She couldn't believe it. First time in my life, someone told me I was a talented writer, that my message mattered, and asked me to write, just write it, asked me to write for something other than a classroom assignment. I wrote 4 stories. I sent them off to Pat. And about a year later, this book came out. Chicken Soup for the Soul Inside Basketball. And in this story are some of the greatest coaches of all time. Here I was, 19, trying to be this JV basketball coach. My idol, Mike Krzyzewski, he's in here. Greg Popovich of the Spurs, he has a story in here. Pat Riley, one of my idols, from the Lakers, and so many others, he's in here. Chuck Daly, the Dream Team, he's in here. Some of the greatest basketball players of all time. Chris Paul, Grant Hill, Duke, Crum Butler. They have stories written in here. And there's this no-name kid named Steve Schultz from Valley, California, who has 2 stories in here. The only one with 2. I couldn't believe it. This me, this little guy who felt worthless, was in the same nationally published book as all my idols and my greats. Because Pat Williams dared to love greater than most people. And serve. And give. I remember that my first piece of fan mail I got, a few months after this came out, was from a middle school boy in Kentucky. I've never been to Kentucky physically, but my influence has through writing. And when this book kind of came out, there was a magazine starting in Fat Lake called the Fat Lake Living Magazine. And they did a story on me for this book. And they asked me to start writing for them. And I got my own column on leadership. And for 11 years, every month, I wrote a book or a column on different topics of love, of life, of leadership. And I've told you before, I've heard from hundreds and hundreds of strangers. Those way older than me, those younger than me, people, grandparents and their child, and then their grandchild, all reading my articles together. People will write to me and stop me and say, Steve, your column has brought me closer to God, has made me more loving, more kind, helped me with divorce, death. All this stuff is Pat Williams' influence too. None of this happens unless Pat Williams returns a kid's phone call. I don't become this unless Pat Williams writes me this letter and says, I believe in you. You have talent. You know, on the wall back there, you guys see the WWF Championship belt? You see Kobe, Kareem, and Jerry West in their losing season say, they who dare conquer. You see John Wooden up there, and you see Abraham Lincoln. Right below is a package. This is 2 Steve Schultz Valley High Schools from Orlando Magic. And after one of my phone calls to Pat, I come to work one day. I don't have a mailbox here yet. I'm this walk-on basketball coach, college student, trying to become something. I have a package from the NBA. That was one of Pat's newest books before it even came out yet. And a handwritten letter. Just encouraged me to keep reading, keep leading, keep serving, keep loving. I made a vow that day. I was going to be a reader and a leader. And I've read over 1,000 books since. And like Pat gave me books, I've given over 1,000 books. Over 20 grand of my own money. 1,000 books to students every year I get to players. I've given away over 200 of Pat Williams books to students and to players. He changed me. He changed me by serving me. As Pat said, leaders who don't want to serve shouldn't serve as leaders. Leaders who don't want to serve should not serve as leaders. My goal, my dream one day is what no one have to call servant leadership. We just call it leadership. Because everyone who leads serves. We don't have to hype out the servant leadership. It's just all leadership is servant. But you're going to find as you get older and get bosses and go to workplaces, you see with a lot of your teachers, most people aren't servant leaders. They're bosses. It's a big difference. I could do nothing for Pat. 19 kids of his own. And yet he responded to a 19-year-old. And it changed my life forever. And all these kids have been able to help as a teacher, as a coach, and a leader. Now I am leading an entire school district, the youngest ever as a school board trustee of the Fountain Valley School District. That goes back to Pat Williams. He told me at 19 I could be a leader too. And here's how. You got to believe more in yourselves. But more important than that, who are you serving? Who's around you right now that needs some of your milk, that needs some of your love, that needs you to serve and give it away with no thought of return? Because teeter-totter leaders, we love without receipts. We don't expect to be returned to us. You don't have to be famous. And just when you think you can't give any more, like when my former player called me yesterday, he said, hey, I showed him the last page of my favorite children's book, The Giving Tree, and said, even when the tree was a stump, I thought I had nothing more to give. Because actually I need a seat, and a stump's a great seat. Everything you have nothing more to give, you can give more. When this book came out, which now have been like, I think, about 12 different chicken soup stories published since this one that Pat started me on. There was a local LA Times reporter did an article on me because this little 19-year-old kid is in this national published book. There was a young reporter, local reporter, probably only talked to high school coach his whole career. And he's doing this story on me, and he said, hey, Steve, do you think Pat Williams would talk to me for the story? I said, probably. Here's his number. He calls Pat, and Pat calls that guy back and gives a bunch of quotes from the newspaper article about me. And the guy said, in all his whole career, the coolest moment ever is this local reporter for LA Times got to talk to an NBA executive, Pat Williams. He just gives and gives and gives and gives. Doesn't run out, just refills it because he's full of love. Who are you going to be? Who are you serving? It matters. I mentioned this photo right here. This is Pat and I at an NBA Orlando Magic game. All this impact, I never had even met Pat. I didn't know him personally, but he made me a better person. He's one of the most important, top 5 people in my life. And a few years ago, my varsity boys basketball team at Los Alamitos High School, Los Al, we're going to Orlando for a winter basketball tournament. And we get tickets to the Orlando Magic game for all the players. We walk into the stadium, and we walk in, there's these 3 huge, like 70 feet tall banners. One of Penny Hardaway, one of Shaquille O'Neal, and the other of Pat Williams with that #1 ball, and it changed the franchise. It was Pat's dream to bring an NBA team to Orlando, and he did it. And everyone's looking at Shaq, and I'm looking at Pat. Because that's my hero, that's my guy. None of the players really knew who he was. I told the guys, remember all this Pat Williams guys I've been telling you about? Because I've been talking to the guys in our leadership meetings about Pat Williams. They go, that's him, the guy in the banner. I was like, really? Yeah, that's the guy I've been telling you about. We watch the game, have a great time. The game ends, we're coming down the escalators to the lobby, to get to the bus back to the hotel. And who do I see in the lobby shaking hands with the fans, thanking them for coming to the game? It's Pat Williams. I couldn't believe it. I wait my turn, I go up to him, one of my players takes a picture for me. I go, hey, Pat, my name is Steve Schultz. You probably don't know who I am, but you changed my life. You got me published in the Chicken Soup book. You've written me multiple times. You give me books. Like, thank you so much. Took this picture. I can guarantee you can go to any professional sporting event in America, and I can almost guarantee when you leave there, the vice president of that team is not going to be in the lobby shaking hands with the regular fans saying, thanks for coming. That's what Pat Williams did before he retired. And he was fighting blood cancer at the time. And still giving back. Still serving. It's possible and practical to change the world, one life at a time. You can love so large, you can reach from Orange County, Florida, all the way to Orange County, California. And make that kind of impact. I met Pat Williams one time briefly in the lobby of Orlando Magic game. He's one of the most important people in my life. You know, yesterday, one of my former students I had 13 years ago, my first class, he goes, hey, can I come see you? He comes back, and we spent an hour in here yesterday, just him and I. He's moving to New York. And he wanted to say goodbye before he moves. And, you know, he sees his photo on the wall, and he starts telling me all these stories that I used to tell from 13 years ago. I was a speech impediment, shy kid. I learned to tell stories by reading Pat Williams' books about teaching storytelling. Here was a kid, wanted to say goodbye to his teacher from 13 years ago. He's a 28-year-old grown man now. But I mattered that much to him. And he remembered my lessons, my storytelling. And that would not have happened had Pat Williams not poured and served love into me. I would not be standing in front of you today. And all the former students who've impacted me, who've voted me teacher of the year twice, none of this stuff, running for elections, none of it happens. None of the fan mail, none of the letters, none of the impact happens without the actions of love and service from Pat Williams. Pat's newest book, which I've given out to a few students already. And yesterday I gave you guys all these gold skeleton keys. Look what this book's about. Love, service. It's called The Reluctant Leader. What does that word mean, reluctant? What's a reluctant leader? Someone who's reluctant is what? What's that? Not unwilling. What does reluctant mean? That's how I was as a 19-year-old. Yes, sir.
Could be hesitant.
Hesitant, good. What else? 1 second. What?
Shy.
Shy, doubtful, unsure if they can make it or do it. And I bet all of you in here have some reluctancy to lead. And as Pat told me when I was 19, you can't. You're talented, but you got to invest in yourself. Leadership is the daily development of oneself. It's elevating lives with the daily development of oneself in order to positively influence others to become their personal and collective best. All my friends are out getting wasted. I was inside getting elevated, reading thousands of books, writing things. Everyone's telling me crazy. Had I not written that book on my own until 4 o'clock every morning, and then sent off to Pat never would have sent me his books and asked me to bring the chicken soup book. And after I experienced what it's like to be in one chicken soup book, I kept writing more stories. Not all of them were published, but some were rejected. And I kept making the effort to get more stories published. My dream one day is to have my own book one day. Not be one of many authors, but have my own book. But you got to believe in you. You got to bet on yourself, and then you got to build yourself. The daily development of oneself so you can serve others and elevate them up and make them better human beings. That's what we decided leadership was, is giving the very best of who you are as a person to others, make them the best person they can be. Improve people's performance and improve your people. And I can almost weep with gratitude. The entire trajectory of my life was changed by some actions of service by a guy all the way across the country. Who are you serving today? Who are you serving? What action of love can you do? When we talked about the other day, reach your hand out in service, other than that little childhood game. You top yourself. Love as large as you can today, then top yourself tomorrow, and top yourself, and you start elevating humanity through love and through service. There are going to be many, many people who are going to say your name is the top 5 most important names in their lives. You're going to be a Pat Williams to somebody. I most admire the Shaquille O'Neal's. My hero was on the banner named Pat Williams. No one knew his name, but I didn't matter to me. You're going to be someone's name for the rest of their lives. They're going to be serving and changing who they are because you changed their story of how they saw themselves. You change people's world by changing their words of how they view their vision for their life. Start developing yourselves. Be the readers, be the writers, be the leaders, be love, and give service. Slowly, one by one, you can change the world. Every single person ever impacted is Pat Williams' impact too. And the guys that impacted Pat, they impacted me too. And you just go on and through impact you gain immortality. So next time your bottle feels empty, and you're going, do I matter? Am I making a difference? Get yourself upright. And let love refill your tank. And one reason why we love little babies so much is they remind us how to love. As John Wood would say, a bell isn't a bell until you ring it. The love that was put inside you was put it to stay. Love isn't love until you give it away. Every day of your lives, you have more people to serve. There's purpose in service. And I wish you lives with purpose because you lead with service. Make sense? All right. Speaking of love, we're going to do